Hey, what's up, guys? We are the producer dudes. My name is Kalen Orr.
And I am Eric Jones.
And today we're going to be discussing a couple of topics, mainly one topic, Mac versus PC.
Now, is it Mac versus PC?
No, not this. Mac, it's like from both viewpoints, using a Mac for audio production and a PC from audio production standpoint. And what are the differences? Not necessarily what's better or what's worse. It's like, you know, what's different. And if you're like thinking about transferring from one to the other, what are the differences that you're going to encounter and which one might benefit you more, you know, for your personal use.
For sure. So this has been a topic between us two, just in conversation for a while, because we both had 2011, 2012 MacBook Pros that we had used since we got them for our music production, video production, all kinds of stuff like that. And it happened to me about a year and a few months ago where I was like, I need a new computer now. And I wanted to build a PC, got scared because I've been using MacBook Pro since 2008. And then from there, I chickened out of that process and got an iMac, and took the iMac back because it had a hard drive instead of a SSD.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, if you want to upgrade your hard drive in an iMac, you got to rip the whole screen off delicately.
It's so terrifying. I've seen people do it in like YouTube videos, and like I'm nervous for them.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a scary process, and then it's like it voids any warranty, and if you mess it up, it's like, well, that's however much money you just sunk into a mistake, you know.
For sure. And I ended up getting a 2017 MacBook Pro, which was a fantastic laptop. And I used that for a year, sold that, and built my own PC finally.
Yeah.
And so, does a PC suck for audio stuff, and do you need a Mac?
No.
Nah. As far as switching between Pro Tools and Studio One, it's literally been about the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's all that's going to be different. It's just like this. It's like, oh, I have to just like the menu options and things you'll see, like little tiny aesthetic changes that you just see between iOS and Windows. That's really going to be the only real differences you encounter in both that I've encountered anyway.
And so to kind of explain my story as to why I was afraid to switch to PC, because I bet a lot of you might have a similar mental situation going on, and this can help alleviate any frustrations. At the time, I was using an Apollo twin interface, which is Thunderbolt. And when I was researching PCs, you know, at the time, there were like 2 motherboards that would support motherboard. They had to be Intel, and my budget at the time was only going to work out for an AMD Ryzen build. And with that, I was like, okay, I don't want to get rid of this interface. You know, foreshadowing, I ended up doing that.
Ended up doing it anyway,
yeah.
which happens to the best of us.
But I got another Thunderbolt interface instead.
Yeah.
And so I stayed with Thunderbolt, and I had the MacBook Pro, and it was working really, really well. My biggest frustration was when I would take it anywhere, I also had a backpack with 3 or 4 dongles because I needed 2 external hard drives, one for plugins, one for my actual session, because for $2,500, you only got 256 gigs of SSD in the laptop. Mm-hmm. And the way Apple's been going, which sparked my initial desire to build a PC, was, oh, cool. We're going to solder everything together, make it pretty permanent unless you're a skilled computer tech or welding and welding engineer, welding person, to make any adjustments to it. And that was a bit frustrating because both of us coming from the 2011, 2012 MacBook
all
Pro.
Built in, yeah.
Yeah, but we could swap out the RAM, which you could do with the new stuff. Mostly, it's not too bad. The MacBook Pros do solder the RAM to the board for you. But we could swap out the hard drives and optical bays for SSDs. Mm-hmm. And you know, we could do a handful of mods to those. But moving forward into 2017, 2018 MacBook Pro territory, it's all soldered together. Yeah. What you buy is what you get.
Yeah, there's very little room to upgrade. So
without voiding your warranty.
Without voiding the warranty, and it pushes you to invest the money up front into something like that, which, you know, if you compare it to what the price that you're going to be paying up front versus like modding it and getting, you know, you're going to be paying a lot more up front for the extra hard drive space and all that stuff. So it's just, it's a tough thing to justify. But I mean, you know, on my side, you know, I went with a 2018 very recently. I'm actually so recent that I'm still transferring all my sessions and plugins and all that stuff over to it, which is always a fun process. Love it so much. And I went 2018. For me, like I would say Eric is definitely more on the technical side as far as, you know, with the PC being able to go in and like change parameters and really get maximize the most out of his machine. And for me, I've just been away from PC for too long to where, yeah, I'm that typical Mac Apple guy, but I'm not afraid to admit it. And I know, and I just want something that for me, it's like, I want something I know that's stable, that I know I can use well, that is portable and will just be stupid solid. And, you know, and I need it. And for me, the laptop format was ideal because because I honestly do a lot of recording remotely, and it always works well for me. And until I get a place that's more permanent, you know, I need that ability, and it's not ideal for me to tote around a tower anywhere.
For sure. And I'm not moving my tower anywhere either, so my recording happens here.
Right. Yeah, you're pretty locked in where you're at, but that works well for you in your current spot. Yeah.
Now, I wanted to go over some hardware differences, so those that are kind of techie and want to be able to make adjustments.
Teach me, Eric, because I have no idea.
To see like what price point is there a major benefit. I will preface all of everything I'm about to say with this. Both will do it. Both make excellent machines, whether you build your own PC or buy a Mac the way it is. And you're not going to be upset you got either unless you're like a Logic user,
right,
or a Final Cut user.
That's true. Which neither one of us really are. Like we've both used Logic in the past, but we've either gone Studio One or Pro Tools for the most part now.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the major differences is going to be price point per thing you get. So my $2,500 laptop had a quad-core i7 processor clocked at 2.8 gigahertz. And 16 gigs of RAM, a 256 gigabyte solid-state drive, a 1.5 gigabyte video card, and I think that's some of the major like things that were added. The Retina display was gorgeous.
Yeah, the Retina display on mine, that is a pretty impressive thing that I really do appreciate it. I mean, there's always like stupid little things that on a grand scheme of things don't really matter, but they're kind of nice. Like I dig the main, what do you even call it? Like the navigation bar.
Oh, the touch bar.
Touch bar. That's cool. I do like the touch ID to unlock passwords and stuff like that. It's just this, you know, and I'm sure like some more modern PC machines have the exact same thing, but you know, it's kind of a cool updated feature from my 2011 that I'm like, oh, this is nice. It makes my workflow a little bit more efficient by a couple milliseconds.
Yeah,
you know?
and then your processor's definitely stronger than what you had before.
Oh, most definitely.
In your model, I think you have a 6-core processor.
Yeah, I have a 6-core, 1 terabyte.
SSD.
Yeah.
So
and
he got like nice top shelf version of his laptop. Do you know how much video RAM yours has?
I don't know the video RAM off the top of my head. I have to look that up.
Okay.
But I can maybe check that out.
Yeah. So while he's looking that up, now that's $2,500 for that MacBook Pro. I sold it and built a PC for $1,600. Now here's what I got. I have an i7 Intel 8th gen processor that is clocked at 3.7 gigahertz, 8700K, and it's got 6 cores. So more than around double the actual performance that my MacBook had. I got 16 gigs of RAM, about the same. I have that clocked at 3200 megahertz or whatever that measurement is. I'm not that technical. And I have a GTX 1070 graphics card, which gives me 8 gigs of video RAM. So I'm more than like 3 to 4 times the actual video editing strength I had before. I get to play games, and here's one of my favorite parts. With the MacBook Pro, I literally had to carry around 3 hard drives. that would all go into different dongles and go into my MacBook Pro. Inside my tower right now, I have a 500 gigabyte solid state drive, two 1 terabyte 7200 RPM hard drives, and I'm going to be putting in my plugins SSD here in a few weeks into my actual unit. And my computer case is soundproof. Notice the quotes, because with that, there's a bunch of padding and stuff on the inside, but you still have to cool the system down. And so there is some fan stuff happening, but it's nowhere near as bad as a laptop fan going off in the middle of a session. And so, I don't know. I've been really happy with the switch. My biggest frustration switching from Mac to PC are the Audio drivers. In Mac, I can hook up my interface and have access to any of my inputs and outputs without having to change stuff. In Windows, I have ASIO for all. Even within that, I have to select what speaker I want to use. Am I using headphones? Am I using inputs 1 and 2? Or am I using inputs 3 and 4? With a Mac, they're all available all the time. It's seamless. And so that's my biggest frustration, switching from the Mac to PC. But it's been manageable. I haven't had any situations come up to where I've been limited by it. I just noticed I have to configure that stuff.
Yeah, I get that. Let's see, I'm having trouble tracking down my exact one. I know with the proper amount of storage, but I know that it would... See, this is the one below it, and that's $27.99 for 512 gigabytes of SSD storage. Let's see. I don't know. It's not coming up at the moment on just on the website. I'd probably have to go in and like fill out a card or something like that to try to figure out the exact specs on it.
I'm gonna guess you have between 2 and 4 gigabytes of VRAM.
I would imagine. Yeah.
And so
I think I want to say it's 4.
Okay.
But
4 at the most, and 4 is actually plenty for anything you would be doing.
I'm not, I'll do some video editing from time to time, for to help out with this from time to time, but I'm not a gamer. Yeah. Personally, so I'm not using. That's another thing, like you said earlier. I'm not utilizing my machine for something like gaming or something like that. Which, definitely PC, especially spec'd out the way you have it spec'd out, is way more ideal for that type of situation. So, be thinking of other uses. Mine is strictly for just like personal things and strictly just like session recording work. That's like its job, with some video editing and other things on the side, I would say.
Now, something I could directly correlate to Pro Tools performance, a session I was working with a Sworn to the Sword. There was one song with so many tracks that my MacBook couldn't keep up. I had to bounce out a mix so we could record vocals.
Gotcha.
On this one, I'm pulling up the same session, and I'm idling at like 6% CPU usage.
Dude, that's awesome.
And then I'm adding effects, doing stuff, or recording with effects. And stuff, and there's no issue at all. Yeah,
I'm interested to see how the performance of mine handles it long term, because with obviously my 2011, there's a lot of sessions. Like if I do a lot of like heavy MIDI instrumentation, I'm doing a project right now which is more of like a PMW, praise and worship project, and so it's super heavy on pads and like MIDI instrumentation, and even for like I'm doing a lot of the I'm producing it, and I'm also helping with songwriting on it as well. So like I'm programming, at least getting the idea down. I'm programming a lot of the bass, programming all the drums, doing a lot of heavy pad works, like orchestration type stuff. It definitely bogs it down pretty quick. And I haven't moved those sessions over to my new laptop yet, so I'm interested. It's definitely peaking out right now on my iMac that I'm currently borrowing from our good buddy Josh, who plays in the band Ravenhill. He's did me a solid in between laptops and let me use his iMac, and it's done a good job for how I think it's like a 2013, something like that. But it's definitely pushing its limits. So I'm interested to see how the new MacBook performs on that level.
Dude, your MacBook's gonna slay that. And I'll say this, like, part of the biggest like feature I think of a Mac computer that I do miss as well, it's not like a make or break thing for me or like even on the radar, but it's something I just generally miss, is how integrated Photoshop, Final Cut Pro X and Logic R. Because on Logic, even with my old laptop, I could have like 40 MIDI instruments going on, and it's just like, oh yeah, we just do this. It's fine. Like,
yeah.
It's not even having any performance issues or anything.
There's like the occasional time I will bring up Logic. Is for stuff like that from time to time. If I really just want to utilize whatever Logic has, and even like for just building drum MIDI using like that intelligent drummer function algorithm that's built into that, it's super easy and convenient for songwriting. And, you can just convert that into actual MIDI. And so I can export that out and just MIDI map it to what, if I'm like right now I'm on a Get Good Modern and Massive, Get Good Drums, Modern and Massive kicks. So I'd probably use that kit, but use the MIDI from that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to think if there's anything else that was relevant or like somewhat crucial as far as like my experience switching. It's been great. Drivers are all readily available. I will say this, man. This computer is smoking out my MacBook Pro for video editing.
Dude, that's awesome. That's good to hear. And you're doing a lot of that. So, I'm interested to see how mine handles that type of stuff. But I know you're doing a lot of heavy lifting right now on the video editing. So that's an awesome tool to have. And it's great that it's really handling that super easily.
For sure. And side note, so in order to properly utilize Thunderbolt on a PC, which I think this is pretty important because this is all happening right now through a Thunderbolt interface, is you have to have a motherboard that supports Thunderbolt 3. And so USB Type-C and Thunderbolt 3 are two completely different things. So if you get a motherboard that supports USB Type-C, it does not mean it's going to do Thunderbolt 3. And so I have an Asus... it'll pop up like somewhere right here. But I have an Asus motherboard, and then I also have an Asus Thunderbolt TH or TX3, which is basically a PCI card slot that goes into the motherboard, and it's how I'm connecting Thunderbolt. And this is super dope that I'm able to use Thunderbolt on a PC because this was difficult a year ago, and I think near impossible 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was like that was like a deciding factor. It's like, oh, well, I have to stay Mac because just strictly Thunderbolt, and so it wasn't even a question. Now the fact that it's a possibility now, it's pretty cool.
For sure.
I mean, it's like I said, it's all moving that direction. It's all becoming universal. There used to be like I remember because I use Apogee interfaces. Like there was a time where it's like Apogee was strictly Mac. And like they wouldn't, work on a PC computer. So it's cool. Stuff is finally, able to cross boundaries a little bit more.
Another big plus that I've experienced with working on a PC versus the Macs I've had is the available PCI slots. And so, for example, I'm able to add this expansion slot that allows me to use Thunderbolt. If I want to get my old plugins from UAD back, I don't have to buy another interface. I could keep using my PreSonus Quantum, but then actually just buy their DSP PCI cards, put it in there, and then I have registerable DSP, and I could use those plugins with my current interface, which is awesome.
Yeah.
You can't do that on, I don't think, any modern Mac without like an external unit that accepts PCIs that's connected via Thunderbolt.
Right.
Unless you have one of the cheese graters.
Yeah, for sure. And then that was one way UA would get you, is like stuck on their interfaces. Like, well, we invested all this money in all these plugins, but you have to use our interface to be able to utilize it. But that's kind of a good workaround if you have a PC to where you can use your UA plugins just with a satellite or whatever it's called in the PCI slot. So that's kind of a cool thing that you can do.
And so hopefully this has been helpful for anyone watching. If you have any questions or we missed anything, please drop a comment below, subscribe. This is available on YouTube, it's available on Twitch, and the podcast version of this is available everywhere.
Yeah.
So just look us up, Producer Dudes, and the Twitch channel is Honeygoldrecords, which Producer Dudes is under that umbrella.
Yeah, Honeygoldrecords is our independent label that both Eric and I work for, as well as a couple other guys and a couple of other bands, and our whole thing is just to promote great bands, promote great art, and also cool podcasts. And so there's a couple other podcasts that fall under that umbrella. We have one called The Hive that we do. That's kind of like the Honeygoldrecords like official podcast. Another one called Gathering My Thoughts. Our good buddy Johnny Gore, he does that one. Super awesome, super hilarious. Definitely worth your time. And I'm sure there's going to be more coming down the pipeline, but and check out City of Auburn, Ravenhill, Least of These Words.
A Red Arrow.
Any of those bands.
Yeah, they're all great.
Yeah.
And so, well, hey, hope you had an entertaining time here and hope this was helpful. Have a wonderful day.
Later.